It was just after 7:30 on a warm September morning when the quiet of Portman Avenue in Mortlake, West London, broke. A shadow crossed the brick terraces, and a body struck the pavement outside number 9 with a sound that stopped the street. A woman watering begonias dropped her hose. A man on his way to the station froze mid-step. Somewhere, a child screamed. The figure lay twisted on the flagstones, blood finding the seams in the concrete. No passport, no wallet, no phone, no shoes. Just a faded blue t-shirt and jeans on a young man who looked as if he had fallen straight from an empty sky. There was no parachute, no wreckage, no tower to jump from. This is a street of low roofs and clipped hedges, not ledges. Police taped the scene while neighbors gathered behind it, whispering theories that sounded fragile even as they spoke them. Terrorism? A jumper? Something dropped from another aircraft? Forensics photographed, measured, and searched. The man was not in any local database. Prints returned nothing. There were no obvious tattoos. The body gave up no name. The break came from above. A resident remembered the growl of a jet descending toward Heathrow just moments before impact. A Kenya Airways flight on final approach from Nairobi. Investigators contacted the airline. The manifest showed nothing unusual, no one missing, no incident on board. But when the aircraft rolled into the hangar, engineers inspecting the undercarriage found torn insulation, scuffed metal, a streak of blood, and an airline snack packet wedged in the right wheel well. The answer no one wanted was also the only one that fit. He had ridden to London inside the landing gear. A landing gear bay is not a cabin. It is an unpressurized, unheated compartment intended for wheels and hydraulics, not people. Temperatures at altitude fall past -50 degrees Celsius. Oxygen thins until breath becomes a negotiation the body can't win. Most who make it that far lose consciousness as the plane climbs and never wake. If they survive the cold and hypoxia, the last hazard remains. On descent, the gear door opens, the wheels drop, and whatever is not bolted down meets the sky. The case moved from scene to timeline. Security footage at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Nairobi, was pulled. Reviewers slowed the grainy night images until a lone figure could be seen slipping through a gap along the perimeter fence, crouching in scrub, then sprinting across the tarmac when the lights and traffic lined up in his favor. Ground crews worked a few yards away. The figure reached the aircraft, hauled himself into the darkness of the wheel well, and disappeared. No ticket, no baggage. A plan with only one step. Hold on. Days later, Heathrow detained another stowaway from Kenya. He had survived. Questioning him opened a small door. British reporters worked the story. A name surfaced and repeated until it stuck. Paul Manyasi, 19, an airport cleaner from Nairobi. He spoke English, read when he could, asked questions about London. He had told no one of a plan. When journalists reached his family with a photograph of the blue t-shirt recovered on the body, his father's voice broke. "That is my son's shirt." Officials were cautious. Some disputed the identification. Statements shifted with the pressure of attention. But the outline held: a young man from Nairobi had hidden in the landing gear of a flight to London and fallen onto a suburban street. Reconstructing his journey became an act of measured imagination, grounded in what the body and the plane could say. He likely slipped away from his shift after midnight, watched the taxiway patterns until he learned their rhythm, and ran when the wide body turned its nose toward the gate. Inside the wheel well, space is measured in inches. Grease coats everything. The struts are cold, even on the ground. When the aircraft lifted from Nairobi, warm night air gave way to a darkness that got colder and thinner with each 1,000 feet. Numbness spreads first to fingers, then to thoughts. At cruising altitude, consciousness becomes a brittle thing. Many lose it and never regain it. If he did, it would have been only in the seconds before descent, when the compartment opened, The wheels extended, and London spread beneath him like a map he had tried to reach. The coroner's conclusions were clinical: hypothermia and hypoxia, followed by catastrophic trauma from the fall. The investigating team logged the wheel well evidence, the runway cameras, the path of the aircraft, and the witnesses on Portman Avenue who heard the engine note change seconds before the impact. The paperwork assigned an alias because forms cannot file blanks. He was buried with quiet dignity. A priest spoke the words reserved for a stranger, which, in practice, are the same words said for a son. What remains is what always remains after an anonymous death that still touches a city: the questions and the uses of a story. For a few weeks, headlines asked about airport security on both continents. Could fences be higher? Could patrols be tighter? Could sensors catch the heat of a body tucked into machinery? Immigration debates briefly absorbed his fall as an example. Then the cycle moved on, as cycles do. But the street did not forget as quickly. For months afterward, neighbors would look up when an engine dragged its sound low across the rooftops, as if attention could make the sky safer. His attempt was not without precedent. Wheelwell stowaways have been recorded for decades, their names usually reduced to numbers and routes in thin reports. A handful have survived. Most have not. The pattern is constant. When chances close on the ground, the idea of a different life gathers at the fence line. The calculation is brutal and clear. The airplane is not a vehicle, it is an opening. Somewhere in Kenya, a mother still sets an extra cup on the table out of habit, then moves it aside. A father hears a jet and wonders if his son ever saw the lights of London. Friends remember a boy who asked about foreign weather and copied unfamiliar words into a notebook. In London, a woman still hears the hose slap stone when she dropped it. Everyone involved keeps a small piece they cannot put down. Stories like this invite speculation and correction. Some officials disputed the name, some sources affirmed it. There are other cases, other dates, other streets beneath Heathrow's holding patterns. But the pattern itself is constant. A person decides to risk metal and sky for a chance, climbs into a cavity not built for human life, and becomes a line in a report unless someone insists on more. Whether the man who fell on Portman Avenue was Paul Manyasi or another with the same hunger, the human truth does not change. A life reached for something beyond the fence and paid the highest price for it. If you walk that block now, the flagstones have been repointed. The hydrangeas are larger. A different family parks outside number 9. Life folds back over the place where he landed the way grass closes over a footprint. Planes still write white lines over the river, wheels dropping as they turn toward the runways. Most evenings, nobody looks up. But sometimes, when the cloud cover is low and sound seems closer, someone does. For a moment they hold their gaze, as if watching might make the sky kinder. The distance between a runway fence in Nairobi and a summer morning in West London is 9 hours by air and the length of a landing gear door. He tried to cross both. That is the part worth saying aloud when data fades and arguments cool. A young man reached for something he could not get where he stood. He paid for that reach with everything. His story is not an answer to policy. It is a reminder to count the cost in lives when we draw lines on maps and call them settled. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.